You ever have one of those neighbors who just won't mind their own business? You know the type. Clipboard in hand, fake smile on their face, always watching, always judging. That was Corinne. Not just any Corinne Ace Joe, a Corinne. Except here's the kicker. I wasn't even part of her HOA. But that didn't stop her from trying to control my life like I was living on her property. And when her nasty little notes and daily complaints didn't work, she called the cops. Big mistake, Corinne. Huge dot. It all started on a quiet Wednesday morning. I was sipping my coffee on the front porch, enjoying my little slice of freedom. Live on a private lot, just outside the boundaries of the local HOA community. I bought the place specifically because I didn't want the drama. I wanted peace, freedom, and the ability to plant a flamingo garden in my front yard, if I felt like it. And for a while, I had that dot until Karen moved in across the street. Now, she technically lived 2 houses down and on the other side of the invisible HOA line, but that didn't stop her. Oh no. She took one look at my unmowed lawn, the basketball hoop in my driveway, and the American flag I hung a little lower than regulation height, and declared war. At first, it was petty. Notes on my mailbox saying, "Your grass is a disgrace to the neighborhood." Flyers about community standards left under my windshield wiper. I even caught her measuring the height of my hedge once, literally holding a tape measure in broad daylight like she was conducting a police investigation. I ignored her. I laughed it off. I thought, let her waste her time. But I underestimated how far she was willing to go. One afternoon, I was working on my truck in the driveway, nothing major. Just changing the oil and replacing the air filter when 2 police cruisers rolled up. Lights on, not sirens, thank God. But it was dramatic enough that the neighbors peeked through their blinds, like it was free HBO. One of the officers, a younger guy, stepped out and said, "Sir, we got a report about unauthorized mechanical work being done on a residential property." I looked at him, genuinely confused. "You're kidding, right?" "No, sir," he said. "Do you live at this address?" "Yeah, I own it. Bought it 5 years ago. And you're not part of the Foxwood Lakes HOA?" "Nope, not even close." That's when I saw her, Karen, standing at the edge of her yard, arms crossed, smug. Smile on her face like she'd just summoned divine justice. I turned back to the officer and said, "Let me guess. Complaints about oil spills, noise violations, maybe an unlicensed vehicle?" He paused, glanced down at his notepad and said, "Actually, yeah. All of the above." I motioned him over and said, "Come take a look." We walked up to my driveway, clean as a whistle. No oil stains, no loud tools, just a quiet, half-open toolbox and a jug of oil waiting to be disposed of properly. My truck was fully registered, tags up to date, no junker project cars in sight. The second officer joined us, older guy, more seasoned. He took one look around and then looked back at me. "You're not in an HOA?" "No, sir. Never have been." "That's why I moved here." He nodded and turned to his partner. "This is a civil matter. Looks like she's trying to enforce HOA rules outside HOA jurisdiction." I couldn't help but smirk. They walked back across the street to talk to her. I couldn't hear everything, but I saw the expression on her face go from smug superiority to flushed embarrassment in about 3 seconds. She tried arguing, pointing, waving her hands around like a mime having a tantrum. But the older cop wasn't having it. About 5 minutes later, the officers came back. "Sir," the younger one said, "we apologize for the inconvenience. You're not doing anything illegal, and this is clearly out of our scope. If she continues harassing you, you might want to file a complaint for misuse of emergency services or civil harassment." I nodded. "Appreciate it, officers. Thanks for your time." As they left, I walked to the edge of my lawn, locked eyes with Corinne, and said loud enough for her to hear, "Next time, try baking cookies instead of calling the cops. You'll make more friends." Her face turned redder than a stop sign. But that wasn't the end of it. Oh no, Karen was just getting warmed up. Over the next week, she ramped up the passive aggression. Left a fake notice on my door from a phony neighborhood compliance board. Even had the nerve to write, "You are bringing property values," down in Sharpie on my garbage can lid. But what she didn't know is that I had already begun my own little investigation. I started digging public records, HOA maps, zoning boundaries, the whole 9 yards. And what I found was golden. Turns out, Karen's house, it was technically in the HOA. Yes, but her lot had been grandfathered in during a redistricting of the HOA lines 10 years ago. Which meant, legally, she didn't have the authority to vote on the board, issue notices, or even attend meetings. She wasn't just powerless over me, she was powerless in general, and I had the documents to prove it. So the next time she strutted over to warn me about my violations, I handed her a manila envelope. Inside, the zoning maps, HOA, registration records, and a notarized letter from the original HOA incorporation, proving both our properties were outside of enforceable boundaries. She looked at the papers, then at me, then back at the papers. And then came that magical moment, the moment when the gears in her head seized up and she realized she'd been playing pretend authority for years. You can't just, this isn't, I smiled. You want to keep harassing me, Karen. Be my guest. But next time, I'll be the one calling the cops. And this time, it won't be a false report. She stomped back across the street, clutching the envelope like it was a cursed scroll. And from that day forward, Karen never said another word to me. But little did I know, she had one more card to play, and it would blow this petty feud into full-on war. You'd think, after getting completely exposed, after being handed cold, hard proof that she had zero authority, Karen would back off and finally go live her life. But no, that would require common sense, humility, and, well, a personality that wasn't powered entirely by spite. So for a couple of weeks, it was quiet. Too quiet. I mowed my lawn, installed new porch lights, even added a small wind chime just to enjoy the peace. But with someone like Karen, peace isn't permanent. It's just a pause before the next storm, and the storm? Oh, it came fast and dirty. It was a Saturday morning. I'd just gotten back from the farmer's market when I noticed a group of unfamiliar cars parked along the curb. 4 of them. SUVs, luxury sedans, even one with a vanity plate that said HOA4LYF. And gathered on Karen's driveway? A full-blown HOA meeting. Clipboards, lawn chairs, folding tables, the whole circus. Now again, I'm not part of the HOA. I don't attend their meetings. But from what I gathered, Karen had gone door to door, whipping up a campaign to protect the integrity of the neighborhood. And her weapon of choice? Me. Apparently she was telling people I was a menace. That I was running an illegal auto repair business from my driveway. That I had dangerous tools and unstable tenants. And yes, by tenants, she meant my cousin Tyler, who had pink hair and a motorcycle. She even accused me of having unregistered pets. I don't know where that came from. I have a golden retriever named Moose, and he's licensed, tagged, and better behaved than half the humans on this street. But what really took the cake? She submitted a proposal to her HOA board to petition the county to forcibly annex my property into their jurisdiction. Let that sink in. She wanted to drag me into the HOA against my will. Why? Because she didn't like my aesthetic. Because I represented chaos in her perfectly curated world of lawn gnomes, white shutters, and silent neighbors. But she didn't realize I had friends too. And more importantly, I had receipts. So I did what any self-respecting, drama-hating homeowner would do. I showed up. I walked right across the street, set down a folding chair just outside their official perimeter, and pulled out my Bluetooth speaker. Then I played audio. Not music, recordings. See, After the police visit and the phony notices, I installed a Ring camera and a hidden audio recorder near my front porch. And over the past few weeks, I had captured some very interesting conversations. Karen muttering. Threats. Karen bragging about knowing the sheriff. Karen even admitting, on tape, that she was going to force that lowlife out, HOA or not. I let that audio play loud and clear. The HOA president, a guy named David, who looked like he got kicked out of a golf club for being too uptight, stood up and asked, "What exactly are you doing?" I looked him dead in the eye and said, "Just making sure everyone here has the full story. Not just the fiction Karen's been spreading." You could see the tide turn instantly. People looked at Karen with wide eyes. A few whispered. One woman literally got up and walked to her car. The facade was crumbling. And then came the cherry on top. I pulled out copies, certified copies, of my property deed, the county zoning map, and a signed letter from the HOA legal team dated 2 years prior stating, in no uncertain terms, that my property is not eligible for inclusion or annexation. Without my consent, I handed it to David. He scanned the papers. His face went pale. And then he turned to Karen and said, "You knew this wasn't possible. Why would you lie about this?" Karen didn't answer. She looked around, desperate for backup, but no one came to her defense. Not this time. She stammered something about just trying to keep the neighborhood safe and maintaining order. But it was too late. The truth was out, and the room well. The driveway was no longer hers. By Monday, word had spread. Karen's crusade had officially backfired. The HOA board issued a letter of censure against her, not that it mattered much since her voting rights were void anyway, but the damage to her reputation? Permanent. The neighbors who once tolerated her now avoided her. She stopped walking her dog in front of my house. The passive-aggressive notes vanished. And the best part? She even took down the security camera she'd secretly pointed at my driveway. Yeah, I saw that too. Recorded the red light blinking through my binoculars. But the real victory came 1 month later. I got a knock at the door. It was David, the HOA president, this time in a plain t-shirt and jeans. I just wanted to say, he began awkwardly, "You were right. She overstepped. A lot. And, well, I know you're not part of the HOA, but we'd love to invite you to our neighborhood cookout next weekend. No rules, no speeches, just burgers." I laughed. "Thanks, I'll bring the beer." That cookout was the first time I saw real smiles on my neighbors' faces. Not the fake HOA-approved grins, but real, relaxed backyard-style friendliness. Tyler brought his guitar. Moose got belly rubs from every kid there. And me? I finally felt at home. As for Karen, she sold her house 4 months later. Rumor was she moved to a gated community with a stricter HOA. You know, the kind with surveillance drones and grass-length citations delivered by robot. Sounded like her kind of paradise, but I didn't care. She was gone. The neighborhood healed. And me? I kept my flamingo garden. So, if you ever find yourself dealing with an HOA, Karen, remember this. Bullies bank on fear. They weaponize ignorance. But knowledge, documentation, a cool head, that's your shield. That's your sword. And sometimes, all it takes to shut them down is standing your ground and hitting play.